Good evening, everyone. Greetings and love. This is Marcia from Gnoshery Libertas, and tonight we are doing another one of our Monday night sanctuaries. This is episode 36 on September 12th, 2022. And for those of you tuning in for the first time, you can be a live guest here through our Patreon. Just search Gnoshery Libertas or through Buy Me a Coffee, Gnoshery Cafe. We'd love to have you join. And we thank you for listening to us in the replay and joining your hearts with ours. For those of you who are new to this, every week I tune into Spirit, Holy Spirit, Great Spirit, whatever you want to call the part of God, the part of Source that allows us to have a more eagle eye perspective on what's going on in our life, something that we don't always have when it's so close to our face in our physical human lives. And so tapping into this greater energy of love and wisdom and infinite intelligence kind of allows us to take a step back to maybe detach from some of the dramas that are happening in us and around our lives in the collective, and really take that observant perspective that allows us to be in a responsive mode rather than maybe a triggered or reactive mode. So every week, Spirit will bring through a light transmission, and that is a theme or a phrase or a concept that Spirit would like us to understand about the present energies and how best to navigate them in our hearts. And Spirit will speak through literally anything: billboards, license plates, conversations you overhear at the grocery store, lyrics. And particularly for these calls, lyrics come up a lot as one of the ways that Spirit uses to help us kind of understand some of these concepts that are really hard to really dilute into words, so to speak, because a lot of this is beyond the human realms. And so we come together every week as a group to receive this information, to integrate this information, and also to kind of be that light in the world, to be the soul of the place, which allows us to really be in joy. And like Spirit says, really be responsive to life rather than reactive. So the theme tonight for the light transmission is in word and deed. And the very first lyrics to come through were, I was lost until I saw your halo. I was blind until I saw your light. I believe we all have angels and you are mine. I don't think you realize what your words can do. The whole world was falling all around me, but I held on to you. Sometimes all I need is someone who, Sometimes all you need is someone who can believe in you more than you do. I think you should know that you saved my life. And what Spirit really was trying to get across here regarding this in word and deed, this integrity, is that the power that we have as individuals to be love and to be what wisdom personified by kind of stepping our ego out of the way, our personality self becoming the servant to the greater I am. And when we do that, we are able to say the right word at the right time. We are able to be that stability or that solidity for someone who is going through a hard time, who may not be believing in themselves in that moment, who may need someone to believe in them until they can make that next step. And so Spirit is bringing this up this week as one of the most important energies, and it's going to come up a couple times throughout the reading, this feeling of that there is no stranger. And when we begin to treat everyone as a friend, we're going to see the world kind of change on a dime. But first, we have to be, in that place ourselves. And this inward indeed, Spirit kept having me really focus on the word integrity, and particularly incorruptibility. And what does it mean to be incorruptible? And you'll often hear, if you engage in conversation with people, as I have around this, people say, yeah, well, anybody can be bought off for a certain amount of money or for a certain opportunity. And, while I would have to personally disagree with that statement, I do understand that it is hard to believe that there is a way to live in integrity that allows us to be incorruptible. And yet when we begin to align with weave, when we begin to align with the Spirit and the divinity and the God that lives within our own heart, then we begin to be incorruptible because we are not willing to step out of alignment. We're not willing to step out of that space of knowing that the God is moving through us. And so it's really a constant listening to the rhythm. It's one of those things where we're always having to recognize when the personality is trying to grab onto something or adhere to something or have its own way about something, and instead we're really asked to step back and say, what is the weave, the highest and best, asking of me in this moment? And some of the ways that the dictionary describes integrity is soundness, undivided, being whole, completeness. And so Spirit asks us throughout this reading tonight, what is integrity? And even more than that, what is having spiritual integrity or integrity within the weave? So I'm going to take a moment to pause and open up the floor in case anyone has anything they wish to offer around this or anything that's coming up on your heart right now. Through the light transmission in word and deed, we always receive from Spirit supporting energies. And the supporting energies this week are the angels of resource and security. And we talked last week about shifting perspectives of security and how things were going to be changing over the next year for humanity, and specifically around the ego's perspective of what it means to be secure. And of course, we talked about, the ego likes to know where its next meal's coming from, where it's going to be sleeping, when's the paycheck coming in. It wants to know, all of its relationships are in place. And yet where we are moving is going to kind of force us into this place of knowing that our resource and security only comes from that personal connection, that intimate connection with God. And that was what we were talking about last week's call, where it's really only this relationship with the nameless that is going to give us the information, the ability to navigate where we are moving. And this picture is like, the darkness to light or the light to darkness. We're going to be seeing a lot of that contrast over the next 4 to 5 months specifically. And the angels of resource and security are here to help humanity move through this time of scarcity consciousness and to help us hear Spirit use the phrase, do you want to reset or do you want to course correct? And we're going to hear the word reset a lot in the programmed matrix from the powers that were as they start to engage this next phase of their spectacle. And yet Spirit says, don't reset, just course correct. Like, there's no need to, once again, follow the narrative that is being offered us. This is the moment where we get to choose our alignment, to be right place, right time, to, go to sleep every night with our head on our pillow and know that we've done right by ourselves and all around us. And so we're getting this opportunity to fall into this non-organic reset that is happening through kind of the plans of the powers that were, or moving into our own course correction and really allowing the Holy Spirit and God to guide us through our own personal relationship in order to know how to be, where to be, all of those things. And we talked last week, like it's almost like showing up, as an actor or actress where you are, standing on the mark and you are kind of stepping your personality aside in order to allow love and wisdom to reveal what the moment actually needs. Because, oftentimes, even if we're incredibly well-meaning, we may overstep our weave, or we may simply just choose the incorrect action because we're, coming from a place of fear or a place of worry or frustration. And so when we are able to kind of remember, okay, my job is to be the servant, the conduit, we're also having this deep connection within that is kind of giving us the momentum of what to know in each moment. But it will require humility and integrity in the sense that it might happen, in the middle of the grocery line, and it might look, like breaking down in tears. So it may not always be comfortable to the personality self or the ego, but it is what is asked of us when we are truly in this spiritual integrity. We're also encouraged through these energies to surrender to sleep and rest. And this is the rest that is like beyond the physical. It's the rest where, Spirit says you might have like 7 nights of great sleep and still wake up feeling, like you're restless, or like you haven't gotten truly what you need. And so, if the body is calling for a nap, or if it's calling for a day off, Spirit is saying really honor this, because we're downloading so much stimuli and information right now beyond our conscious awareness, that it's really important that we actually listen to the body when it wants to eat, when it wants to rest, when it wants to move, etc. We're also moving through this portal of healing our past. So we'll talk more about that in the reading to come, as well as reclaiming intimacy through our personal and collective histories. And Spirit talks about that more in the reading as we go along as well. The very next lyrics, I can see you're hurt, but a bit of hope is all I'm trying to trace. Let's wait out the storm, because giving up leads to regret. I won't let us go down, down, down. For this love, I won't lose. Soon answers will be found, found, found. Our hearts no longer black and blue. Our hearts no longer bruised. And once again, we've had these lyrics before. I want to say it was almost like last fall or early winter, where Spirit was reminding us, sometimes it might look really bleak. It might look really, really challenging, individually and collectively, but the answers will be found. We are not going down. Like, love will win this, but we will have to be those conduits of love. It's not going to happen, as just us bystanding back. We have to be it. And so the next lyrics were, if you saw me on the train, would you look the other way like strangers do? And if you passed me on the street, would you look down at your feet and move on through like strangers do? And Spirit, once again, reminding us, everyone on earth here is a friend when our heart is open, and we're able to see each other at the level of soul when the heart is open. But we've kind of created this, reality where it's easier to look down and just move on through. And yet we're encouraged from Spirit, don't look the other way, always make eye contact, make that motion to smile and connect at the heart, because right now that is really simply the most powerful thing we can do. I'm going to take a moment and open the floor before I move on to the first supporting energy. The angel of resources and security is coming to help us shift our perspective of security. And Spirit says, often when we have more, we are often less creative because we're not forced to be. When you're poor, you're kind of forced to come up with different ways outside the box of doing things in order to experience, certain pleasures and certain things that just can come, very easily to those who are experiencing financial abundance. And yet Spirit says this is so important because this is a time of creativity, of new innovation and revelation. And I was told to write those three things in all capital letters: a time of creativity, new innovation, and revelation. That resources that arrive due to faith and our strong commitment to our purpose. So faith in love, faith in what's possible, faith in the dream in our hearts, and our strong commitment to this purpose is what is bringing those resources forth. External wealth, which mirrors our internal wealth. It is always our choice whether we see the world abundantly or as lacking in some way. We remember that money is simply energy and a means of exchange, and how we spend our energy, our time, and our money reflects our values and the way we view our life. So we may feel this kind of coming into, we talked about the squeeze last week, and what Spirit meant by that is, as this collective outer world kind of puts pressure on us, this time of creativity, new innovation, and revelation come forth. And we need to remember that there's always abundance on God's earth, but there's always a drama and an illusion that we can tap into that says otherwise, that says that we need to be in scarcity consciousness or lacking in some way. So once again, Spirit reiterates how we spend our time, our energy, and our money reflects our values and the way we view our life. So we're really encouraged to make sure that we're conscious about where we're putting those things. How are we, are we putting all our energy into something that is draining us? Or, our time into things that we don't really believe in, or wasting our money on things that actually are kind of hollow and don't have substance. So we're really encouraged to put your resources to good use, support your local economy, know that this person to person exchange of services and goods is where we are moving. So the more that we are kind of tapped in and tuned into that, the more we are kind of the leaders of the where we are going for this organic place of what Spirit calls divine intervention. And we're going through a financial overhaul. And we're going to see this kind of play out over the winter. And Spirit once again brings up this reset or course correct. We're going to hear this reset, 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 reset. And we have to remember that this is a program and we can tap out of that program. And all we need to do is get quiet within ourselves, tap into our prayer, our meditation, our devotion, that which is going to give us the true information, which will always allow us to course correct in every moment. And through God, you can course correct the past, you can course correct the future, because you are listening to the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And it is only through God that we have the power to do those things. So all of these false light creations, these God mimics that the powers that were have been creating over time, it doesn't matter, because in one instant, it can all just literally be reduced to dust physically, but also metaphorically, because the power of the light is so beyond any of the play toys or the playthings, as Spirit calls them, that the powers that were have created. So once again, we're encouraged to spend and invest your time, your energy, and your money in ways that help you to further that further our true purpose, as well as our vision for peace and prosperity. And to honor and give thanks for our blessings, that's the most important thing of all. Staying in this frequency or this zone of gratitude, because when we are in that place, there's always more to be grateful for. And we move on to the next phase of surrendering to sleep and rest. And here Spirit says, prevent burnout and slow down, and to honor our need for quiet alone time to replenish, nourish, and restore our energy and well-being, as this will rejuvenate our mind, our body, and our spirit. It may not make logical sense, Spirit says, wanting to sleep or having this low energy at times that we may not ordinarily, and yet this is the downloading of light codes. And here in all capitals and fully bolded, we must rest to fully integrate. Without rest, these light codes feel more like lightning striking the nervous system. However, with adequate care for all levels of self, we are embodied and replenished at the level of soul, which leads to positive shifts in all areas of our lives. Take the time that we need, Spirit says. This is imperative. And it reminded me of the energy last week when Spirit said, your health is everything right now. Pay close attention to the details. So once again, take the time that we need to surrender to sleep and rest, that this is imperative. And to end this part of the meditation, the lyrics were, find me soon because I'm in my head. I need you now, but I don't know you yet. Because lately it's been hard. They're selling me for parts, but I only have half a heart to give to you. And Spirit acknowledging that a lot of people are kind of going through this desire to know their divinity. They're like, find me, like, find me, God, if you're out there, I need you, but I don't know you. And it's in the knowing of God that is actually going to give us that lit path, the footsteps that light up the path, because there is a different path for each one of us. And that's why our relationship with God is unique to each one of us. And it's why there is never really a conduit between ourselves and God, that has always been an illusion. So once again, find me soon because I'm in my head. So just recognizing when we're taking on the heaviness of the world, when we're starting to be in the obsession or the worry or the fear, and knowing that if we have that feeling in our heart of like, I don't know God, like I don't know if God exists, to desire it, because in the desiring of that, it will find you. Absolutely will find you. I'm going to take a moment to open the floor before I move on to the next supporting energy. The next frequency that came through for this light transmission of in word and deed is that there is a shadow side to the collective, which is coming forth right now, which speaks to the essence of abandonment, feeling this need to remain apart because intimacy is too threatening. And warning against creating, Spirit says, inappropriate family structures in order to conceal old wounds. And what I felt Spirit was saying here is that there are a lot of people kind of rushing into false security right now because they're on some level, maybe subconsciously or maybe consciously, they can kind of feel the bottom dropping out of the way things have always been. And Spirit is warning us, just be aware of where we are creating kind of false relationship in order to conceal old wounds and to address any unhealthy alliances that we may have formed. In all bold, make a decision to heal the past. And the decision being the most important thing. It's really not up to us to kind of pick at the wound and constantly rebandage it. All our job is to make the decision to heal and to step up to the plate when Spirit is asking us to do the healing and the integration. And we're also encouraged to know deeply that we will not be abandoned by the world if we claim ourselves as whole. And I had to like really feel into that when I was in meditation because it really like hit me like a gong that so many of us fear that if we don't have a victim consciousness or a gossip consciousness, that we won't be relatable or we won't be accepted by the world any longer. We'll be abandoned by the world if we claim this wholeness. And Spirit also mentioned here that so many need to complain to connect. And it's through these woundings of loss, disempowerment, and other experiences of victimization that many people actually build relationship. And so we're really encouraged to examine that and to, like I said, Spirit said, address any unhealthy alliances that we have formed, that we are releasing dysfunctional patterns, situations, and relationships, and we are beginning to learn to connect to others in healthy ways once we recognize our patterns and consciously choose to interrupt them with new thought and new responses. We're moving from reactionary to responsive, and Spirit says, do not abandon yourself. Trust that as we tune into what our heart desires, the world will embrace us fully in time. And here, Spirit mentioned being ripped off the grid. That when we are ripped off the grid, that this sense of isolation, not necessarily loneliness, but certainly isolation occurs when we are kind of stripped of everything that we knew, the roles that we had, the relationships, maybe who we thought we knew ourselves to be. And Spirit's saying it's really important to integrate and to really be with the grief and the feelings of maybe anger or resentment or abandonment or rejection that this brings up, because being ripped off the grid, whether no matter how beautiful the spiritual purpose or soulful purpose that it might be, it doesn't necessarily feel very good to the human. And so we're really encouraged to be with those parts of ourselves that are grieving or feeling these emotions of resentment and abandonment and rejection, because there is a huge sense of being no longer part of the tribe. And Spirit says this is a real and true mourning, and to honor this process. Before I move on to the last supporting energy this evening, I just want to open the floor one more time.
I had something that I wanted to add. This is Heather. It's really, really good timing that you were saying this. I went out to dinner with some friends of Miles's and my husband, Miles, and we went out, the four of us, and I felt very much like an outcast because there was some gossiping happening, and I found myself wanting to and doing so, sort of like just not engaging, and then also sort of trying to stand up for the person, even though I didn't know really who they were. But in the end, I trust that, because I've had this experience in the past, that when I'm in a group and I notice people are gossiping, if you start to notice like, wow, that person never says anything behind someone's back, even if you feel ashamed, and I think I've been in both sides of this, even if you feel like, oh gosh, she's such a snob or whatever. She thinks she's better than me. Um, you start to like have this trust. Like if she wouldn't even say something negative about that person, she probably won't say anything about me behind my back either. And like my hope is it's more like a long game, you know, like in the moment that person probably was like, wow, we're not all having a good time here together. But hopefully as I get to know these people more over time, you know, that will bear some fruit.
Well said. And I relate a lot to what you said, back when I was, in my 20s, I was accused at certain times of being like the hub of the super information highway at the high school that I taught at. And um, I found myself like, nobody loves to gossip more than high school teachers. And I always found myself like in these pockets. And in my early 20s, there was like an enticement or allure, to that little frequency, that little clicky gossip frequency that creates. It creates this little inclusivity, and it wasn't until like I really started tapping into spirit where I was like, oh my gosh, like this creates like a very divisive web of energy that you then do have to pay like karmic dues on at some point. And so I would then say to spirit, like, but I love these people and I still want to like be in these conversations. Like, what do I do? Because you don't want to like be like, well, guys can't talk about that. It's like you just, how do you like reframe or hold the weave in a way that, shifts the energy. And I remember spirit guiding me like to do exactly what you just said, to, kind of like indirectly, stand up for other perspectives, and not allowing the gossip to land in you like forces it to have to be like, well, guess I got to move on somewhere else, and yes, people might have feel like, oh, like, well, we can't relate to her or whatever. But like you said, like over time, it really does begin to shift the weave, and it starts to feel kind of icky to others, I've noticed. And so I just, it's not an easy thing to do, but I commend you for holding that space, when you definitely want to be the relatable person and just connect in that moment.
Yeah, thank you. It was kind of challenging because these folks have known my husband for a long time and they had been waiting to meet me. And I was like wanting for it to be really smooth and not awkward. And so, anyways, it's not easy, but it was good, I think.
Well, and it allows you to maintain your integrity. It allows you to go to sleep at night knowing that you were in your heart. And, it's sometimes a lonely place to be in our integrity, but it is not lonely in the sense that we always are knowing that at least we're doing right, by the larger weave of things. And that gives me some peace in these types of situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you again so much for sharing that. I appreciate it. The final supporting energy for the night that goes with inward indeed is that spirit wants us to know that we are whole and that we have everything that we need within us. And when I first began working with spirit, spirit would always say, all the answers are within you. And I would hear it so much that I like wrote it down, like it, became like a mantra to me. All the answers are within you. Because at that point in my life, I was still looking outside of myself for, some of these answers, looking to friends or family or ideas or belief systems. And so what spirit really wants us to remember is through our relationship to our divinity, we will discover our soul. We will discover the wholeness of who we are and the spark of the divine within us. And we will recognize that when we live in that zone, in that pocket, everything that we need, all the resources, all the people, all the events and situations and opportunities, they flow to us and through us because we are in that space. And one of the things spirit is keeps talking about throughout this reading is, like the past kind of coming up to be looked at. And in this part of the reading, it was the past as a way of repeating itself when we haven't learned the lesson inherent in the original wounding or situation, and that we are faced with this now. So if going through the week, or maybe already we've had this experience, but we have this feeling of like, man, like I thought I already like moved through this pattern, or like, how am I here again? Or even just like, where did that come from? That was totally out of left field. We're encouraged to really look at what might be the original wounding within us that could be attracting this situation back to us, and how are we going to be responsive to it, kind of looking at it from of this more detached eagle eye perspective, rather than letting it suck us under in maybe the ways that it has in the past. So just knowing that this could come up, that we might be faced with this now. And then the very next lyrics after that, where the lights go out, the music died. And once again, this feeling that the powers that were really want to create this energy of scarcity and poverty consciousness, and that it's going to be very hard to stay out of the fray of that. And yet, if we can remind ourselves that we are abundant, the earth is abundant, God is abundant, life force is abundant, if we can stay in that life affirming consciousness, the lights will not go out and the music won't die. And we will be the ones to make sure of that. But we are challenged, Spirit says, to see ourselves as whole beings and not as someone who is perpetually trying to heal an old wound. We will repeat the past if we do not reclaim the things that we believe we have lost, individually and collectively. The information that we need lies in our personal and collective history. And this was an important line throughout the reading, that whatever answer we're seeking right now, the information we need lies somewhere either in our individual, personal, or our collective history. And Spirit says this is not an invitation to dance the old dance, rather a call to retreat and to choose a different path. This is the ultimate course correction of and for humanity. And Spirit was very specific and made me bold this, and specific in the wording of and for. The ultimate course correction of and for humanity. If we do what we've always done, we will get what we always got, but we are protected through this eye of the needle. The lyrics, don't worry about anybody else. Go feel something you've never felt. And Spirit, once again, reminding us that our spiritual gifts are strengthening when we move into that place of prayer and meditative devotion, and whatever practice brings us closer to our personal relationship with God. And when we stay in that lane, we begin to create what is possible and where we are moving, that ultimate course correction of and for humanity. And the final lyrics for this reading were, you're trying to clear the future out my head so I can follow your footsteps. So once again, that phrase of like, man plans, God laughs, this calling in this change of plans that we've talked about over the month of August, that we've all been learning these lessons of discernment, and that Spirit's really kind of clearing the future out our heads. Any plans that we might have of where we think we're going, because we're being trained to follow these footsteps of light. And we can only do that through that space of discernment. So once again, how do we do that? How do we have integrity in our word and deed? How do we become incorruptible? And that is up to us. That's a personal gnosis. That's our connection with our own heart that gives us that answer. But Spirit wants us to ponder it. What does it mean to be incorruptible? And the supporting energies, to know that through this time of the squeeze, that the angels of resource and security are actually there to help us course correct. We do not have to reset in a way that feels unscrupulous to the soul. We have the ability to course correct, and it truly is the divine plan. So it is the plan that is happening no matter what, but it is up to us in the timing. And once again, the light codes coming through that are asking us to surrender to sleep and to rest, and to observe and notice any patterns from the past that are coming up to be recognized and healed. Because as we do so, we begin to reclaim the intimacy that we have lost, both personally and collectively. And Spirit says we find the answers that we need in our history. So once again, I can see your hurt, but a bit of hope is all I'm trying to trace. Let's wait out the storm, because giving up leads to regret, and I won't let us go down, down, down. For this love, I won't lose. And Spirit reminds us that we are never alone. No matter how much it feels like that, we can always cry out in prayer. We can always tune in, placing our hands on our heart, taking a good deep breath into our souls, and knowing that we came here to create something that has never been seen before, has never been felt before, even at the level of soul. But if we can each be within our own alignment and then come together, wow, what we can create.